From Ken. Thanks, Ken. Good morning, and thank you for joining us this morning for our City Council budget session. We'll go ahead and get started. Connie, could you please call the roll?
Cheatham.
Here.
Lurick.
Here.
Mangum.
Here.
Mansfield.
Here.
Marchand.
Here.
Nichols.
Here.
Ladd.
Here. Thank you. We'll move to agenda item 2 is Human Resources Department Wellness. Heather Buchanan, Human Resources Director, will give a presentation.
Good morning. Heather Buchanan, Human Resources Director. Do I drive? All right, Jean's going to drive. Our objectives and outcomes for the upcoming fiscal year, there's a couple things that we need to look at. And an assessment of internal HR function. There's been a lot of shifts in HR duties lately, so we kind of need to sit down and assess what HR needs to look like going forward. For fiscal year 24, we will have a collective bargaining with the fire union for the fiscal year 25 budget. You'll start seeing stuff about that soon. Sorry, you don't get a period of grace there. You're about to be dragged in. And then lastly, the last time we did a compensation study was 2014. HR is going to explore what an update to our job descriptions. The biggest thing that we're missing is percentage of work. So when you read through a job description, a person's duties should be broken down by percentage, like 70% patrol officer, 15% so-and-so. That's an essential part of our job descriptions that we're currently missing. I don't believe it can be done in-house effectively. We would need an outside consultant to that. So we will explore options and bring a cost for next budget cycle. We have a very small overtime budget, $263. We usually use $40 of that a year. I would ask that that remain in place. I know. So 15%. I do have one hourly employee in my office. That employee currently chooses comp time rather than overtime, but I do need to be able to cover that for the hours that we do expend. My budget this year, even with raises, is going down. My operations and maintenance is going from 87,000 down to what I'm suggesting at 50,000. Jean will have to answer any interfund questions because I'm not an expert there. Okay.
We've got a question here. Councilmember Mangum.
You'll probably get to it, but what's reducing your operations and maintenance?
So the biggest portion of that is the EAP that we talked about that's moving to salary projections, which will be paid by department rather than 23,000 out of the HR budget. Drug testing has also been reduced from my budget. Andrea talked about that on Monday. I had one-time money for training and travel, so I'm returning that to the budget. So those are all decreases. It's sad to see my budget, go from a whopping 80,000 down to a small 50,000. I am requesting an increase to the recreation line. That's for the Employee Rec Council to do employee events. And then that's a nice spelled word. If you were here in the fall, we had the mug, the hot chocolate and coffee day. We found that to be pretty popular among employees. We are requesting funding to start doing something annually for employees. I'm not sure what that looks like. I'm trying to get through budget before we start focusing on that. The Employee Rec Council does a great job for employee-driven events. This would be a city give back to employees. I thought it was successful. I thought it was good for morale, but again, that is a request that is above 3%. Wellness is pretty much staying flat. We don't usually ask for increases in this fund. We just try to maintain the current services we're providing. We did do one shift in operational lines, but it doesn't increase my overall budget by more than the 3%. Are there any questions?
Councilmember Nichols.
So why is the personnel line flat as well?
Personnel, there is a shift from 23, go back one more, from 23 to 24. First column to last column.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Council President Rick Cheatham.
On that wellness slide, wellness expenditures, expenses, and revenue, maybe they do. I don't understand why No, never mind. I just answered my own question. I'm sorry.
Anyone else have a question like that?
Go ahead and start and just answer your own.
Answer yourself.
That's right. Councilmember Mangum.
I don't really have a question, it's more of a comment. The event you were talking about with the hot chocolate and coffee and mugs and whatnot, that was an awesome event. I think I came both days, and it was packed both days.
Was.
And I congratulate you on a job well done on that project, and I would love to see that continue, because it really was amazing. And being new to the council, being able to introduce myself and be introduced to the city staff and being able to connect with city staff was huge. And so I appreciate that.
There was Holly from HR headed up that event. She did a fantastic job. It was really nice for employees to just be able to have casual interactions with themselves and then with council. It was a big morale boost, I think, for people that we haven't been able to do in the past. We enjoyed putting that together with the help of many other people.
Yep. Any other questions? Super. Thank you, Heather. Then we will move to agenda item 3, which is the police department. Roger Scheid, police chief, will give a presentation.
Ironside.
Hey, he's in his uniform
stand.
in Will's.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm Chief Roger Scheid, Pocatello Police Department. Also, Deputy Chief Major Eric Anderson at the table with me. Thank you for this time and to present our budget slides to you today. So, Gene, go ahead. So, first, some accomplishments that we've completed over the last year. First one is ACE certification. We're the first agency in the state to be ACE certified. We were recognized in Denver this year for our standards in dispatch. That's a huge accomplishment. There's about 308 other certified dispatch centers in the world. So out of that, that shows our high level of attention to detail when it comes to emergency medical dispatching, and that particularly relates to the dispatchers and their ability to dispatch the ambulances and their low rate of error. And we got this all accomplished while going through a revamp of our dispatch center to get new equipment. So basically they were operating on Atari 2600 when there's PlayStation 5 out there. We now have PlayStation 5. So, but to be able to get this goal accomplished with that is truly amazing, and has 100% to do with the men and women in that dispatch center and doing that and the way they led through that. The next one is our Idaho Chiefs of Police Association reaccreditation. What that does is that gives us up to 20% discount on our ICRIMP. The amount we pay for ICRIMP. So by keeping those high standards through training and through our policies and procedures, it gives a huge reduction to that. That happens every 3 years. But we have to continuously work on that to keep our policy manual, update our training standards to meet those, as well as the IDAPA rules that have been set forth here recently in the last 2 years. And that's about a $1,500 cost every 3 years, because we have to pay for the assessors to come out, and that's a huge discount from what we used to do. We used to do what's called CALIA, which was a huge cost and very labor intensive. This is a little less labor intensive because it's all going digital, and it's cheaper for the assessors to come out because they're local. The next one's our mobile command center that was donated by Operation Underground Railroad. It was completed. And that's been a huge asset. We've deployed that several times on several different events, both out in the community for community events, as well as other incidents where we needed it for a response. And then our evidence storage, Captain Collins worked hard on that. We were able to get that done, modernize our space. We moved into this building in 1993, and it essentially tripled our evidence space. And we've had to do new things with our storage. For sexual assault kits, we have to keep those for 55 years now because of the law. So we had to readjust how we store that and repurpose some space back there. So with the space that we do have, rather than building additional buildings out back, we just repurposed some of our space on the inside.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Council President.
I'm curious about on the ACE project, there's an asterisk in the costs column, which makes me wonder if there will be cost to maintain that ACE certification.
So we're going to have to be recertified, so there'll be some personnel costs that go into that. And then is there a fee every 2 or 3 years to?
I don't know the exact fee, but it's probably going to be a smaller fee to be reaccredited. I don't know that number.
Thank you.
So some projects that we're working on, we would have loved to move forward with our locker room project. Our lockers are starting to fail us. The flooring in there's got some issues going on. It would just be easier to rather than piecemeal it together. We've put some funds in there from Fund 78, and we've got $250,000 in there. Unfortunately, that project's going to have to get pushed back to FY24. Our contractors have not gotten back to us, and we've tried to get it out for bid, but everything that we've worked on, and we're working with Tom in procuring things, and after talking to several different contractors, they recommended that we wait to 24 because of just the supply chain, getting everything done, and it's going to have to go out for bid. So it's the timing of it's just not going to be able to get done, and it's probably going to be a little bit more than 250 because when we had this planned out and in the list that you guys got, that was originally in that list, costs have gone up on everything, and it's just it's unpredictable on when we can get somebody in there, but we plan on starting that now to get that process going. So that's going to probably get pushed back into 24. Interview room out front, that's been something we've been wanting to do for a while. Right now, if we interview somebody, we have to traipse them all the way through the building. And that if with COVID, if that exposes people, that we're bringing people back into the building, we don't know exactly what their intentions are when they come back. Then people are unpredictable. Every department that I've gone to across the region has an interview room out front. We would like to put some interview rooms out front. And there's $30,000 that's in Fund 78 to cover that. We would like to do that project, and we had it dialed in to do that, and then some contracting things fell through, and then that's been a struggle with that, but it would keep people from going through our secure facility, and we would really like to make that facility more secure. Back parking lot, some of that funds, Fund 78, once again, the $150,000 was originally in there to do the evidence storage, but we were able to get the evidence storage done last year with our current budget, so we didn't have to tap into that. So what we would like to do is move that $150,000 from Fund 78 to update our back parking lot. If you drive by our back parking lot, you can start to see those concrete fences. They're starting to creep. And then our gates constantly fail us to secure our back parking lot. So we would like to get some updated gates. They're about 10 years old back there, so that they're more reliable and do something with the fencing. And we need also a space too. This would cover a space for our mobile command center structure to get that in there, to get where it's heated and air conditioned so that it lasts longer. The equipment that's in there is weather sensitive. So we've had some temporary fixes thanks to Tom. He's been able to help us out, but as he gets more equipment and needs over at Fleet, we can't keep it stored over there. We have it in the back parking lot right now, but we would like to get that done. And then with the radio realignment, our dispatch center just got recently equipped with 911 funds. So we need to get our radios realigned in our handhelds and our vehicles. Basically on the 700 megahertz system, it drifts a little bit each year. We just need to go and get those realigned.
Mr. Mayor?
We've got two, Councilwoman Lurick and then Nichols.
I just want to be clear in my mind, the locker room, you were talking about pushing it back to 24.
Yes.
But you mean 24,
FY24.
not 25. I mean, we're talking about this 24 budget, right?
Yeah, we're hoping.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
just.
No, the way you were saying push back, I almost got the sense that you weren't going to be able to do it in 24. but you hadn't been able to do it before, but now you want to get going in '24?
So this was something that when we did our budget last year, the council approved
Yeah.
to move forward with.
Yeah.
We've been trying to move forward with it, but it's been difficult
Yeah.
through the times.
Different challenges.
Yes, different challenges, yes.
Yeah, okay, so we are talking about '24?
Yes,
Okay.
FY '24.
Okay.
Brent?
So does radio realignment, does that mean replace? Do you have to replace your radios, or what does realign mean?
No, what Day Wireless will come in, they'll come in with a machine and they'll hook it up to our radios and they'll adjust the frequencies a little bit. It's just a little tweak that they have to do. And then it will realign the channels as well.
Got it, thank you.
Councilmember Marchand?
Because I don't know. 911 funds cover that?
I was
We
gonna
asked,
ask
they
that
said
same
no.
question. They said no?
Yeah.
So who did,
What do they cover?
So they covered the equipment, they covered all of our equipment and dispatch. They'll cover the towers, they'll cover, if we have some type of need as far as equipment goes. I could go back and re-ask.
they would buy the radios, but they won't tune them, basically, is what you're telling me, right? Because I know we bought, in the
Yes.
past, we have
Yes.
purchased radios
We purchased
with 911
equipment.
funds. they don't maintain them, I guess,
Not all.
with money.
No,
Not all the equipment in there.
Right, right.
Yes.
right.
So that's something I could definitely go back and ask. I'm never bashful to ask 911 or the county, but that's a great idea. I can do that.
I think that's what I would prefer, is you go on, you ask the county, they get the 911 fees. City of Pocatello's 85% of the county that's putting into that. They ought to be able to participate that, and we've got another ask that hopefully the fire chief has an answer for us, but he probably doesn't, but we'll find out. But,
Well, they'll have to do the same thing for their radios too. So,
well, sure, they'll have to do the same thing for them. We've got some other stuff that 911 money should, but
Sure.
I haven't seen an accounting for that 911 fees for an awful long time, and so.
So there, with Adam in there, there's a better accounting for that. And so what I would like to do though is go and ask for that, but have a little bit of flexibility that if they don't do that, that's something that could be mission critical that you've got the funds set aside.
So
to do that.
if you look at what you have up there right
Yes.
now, your asks, basically,
Yes.
where you've put money back, how would you rank those?
So I would say radio realignment's probably going to be number one. And then I would really like to get that back parking lot secured. That's a toss-up between the locker room and the back parking lot. I mean, can we make that work? I would really like to have that secured. Locker room, it'd be 3 I put the interview room up there. I mean, locker room, we can make do. I mean,
I know it's
I want to take care of my guys. I want
I
to take
like watching you struggle with that. because
It is because it's a question that it's a valid question, but at the end of the day, I want to take care of my people to make sure that they have a good locker room that they can go to when they're going to work. I mean, they start their day when they get in that locker room, and if they've got a rusty locker with the shelves falling down, and that starts off with that.
So part of my question there is, with the car per man take home, how many guys are actually getting dressed here?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't keep track.
I mean, I know they use it because they work out. They definitely use the locker room. I'm not
All the
saying
time, yeah.
they don't use it, but I also know that, right? We've cut down on the parking in the back parking lot. Doesn't mean it, but we have huge assets
Yes.
that we park back there. So I mean, I know that needs to be secured. I'm just.
Yeah,
Just a question.
and so when you ask me to rank them, I would actually look at that and go, the first thing's going to be definitely that radio realignment. Make sure that gets done. That's mission critical right there. That back parking lot does need to be secured. And I have a problem with the gates, and I don't want the fence to collapse. The interview room, that's a secure facility right there. I mean, that's for the safety of people and getting that in there. But the nice thing is we have the funds already set aside in Fund 78 that we've saved for it. So, and the council's already, one thing they already approved too was the radio realignment was already approved for this year's budget. But once again, we had to wait for the dispatch center to get finished. That project was supposed to be done last summer. and it just got now finished because Motorola, we were on Motorola's timeline.
So is that money in the budget right now?
Yes.
So
and-
you could do it off your budget right now or not?
We're in the budget, we just had to push them.
Yes. So these, go ahead, Jim.
When you say budget, do you mean fiscal year
23?
Yes,
Yes. Yes. That money's in Fund 78 right now, and we talked about the radio realignment and the locker room for FY 23.
But it was approved by the council in '22, not spent, put and sent as savings back to 78.
In 22 for FY 23.
Got you,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
I got you, thank you.
Yes.
So all you need is spending authority in '24, because the money's already appropriated and won't be part of the tax ask.
Correct. None of this is a tax ask. So, our revenue coming in, that looks pretty flat. It's, fees and grants that we have coming in. This would be the last year of our COPS grant, so, any questions on that?
Go over that for me, Roger, please. The COPS grant, review that.
So that was the 5-year grant that we've received and will be in the last year of that COPS grant, so
That funded how many people?
5.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
right, yeah. Yeah.
So the big ask here is a 3% in our operating. When you look at what we've done with our operating budget, it's been pretty amazing. We've been able to find good deals on things, and we've been able to maximize the tax dollars that we've had over the last several years. And it's the cost of doing business. Our ILETS costs have gone up. Our user fees on Spillman have gone up. Our user fees on just about every program, Leads Online, that we use every day have gone up. Our ammo costs have gone up. Uniforms have gone up. And when you're talking about going up, you're talking about anywhere from 3 to 15%, depending on what you're looking at. So just a uniform shirt is $6 or $7 more per uniform shirt. And when you times that by, however many you need, that starts to add up. Ammunition, I know I don't have to tell Councilman Cheatham about the cost of ammunition going up because he understands that. So when you're talking about a 16, 17% increase in that, we buy in bulk, we buy off the state contract and the state bids to keep those costs down. We trade in things, and there's some things coming to you guys tonight. We trade in some of our evidence guns for other items to find, the best way to be cost efficient on that. The deployment on 1099 there, so there's $500,000 that we're going to build in there. That's not what we're asking for is just the ability that if we're granted revenue to go in. So a couple things happened this year. We were asked to do some security up at Highland High School that was paid for by School District 25. We were asked to do the Polish Ambassador security detail, which we did. However, those were unplanned events, and ISU paid for that. ISU reimbursed the city of Pocatello for our resources. And when we did that, that all came out of our overtime budget. But that wasn't a plan. So what we like to do is kind of like what the fire department does. If they're deployed somewhere, they get revenue, and then they have the authority to spend that. Rather than that coming out of our overtime budget, it would come out of that line item there. We would not use that unless we had incoming revenue. If ISU came to us or the railroad came to us and said, hey, we have got a major derailment, we would like you to provide security, or the FBI complex, we've had an event coming in here and we would like to work with you guys on this, we're gonna pay you $100,000 to provide security for this, then we wouldn't have to come to council, we would already have the authority built in there on that. The capital is a 3%, just a 3% increase for like our vehicles. That's our vehicle expenditures right there, $266,000. That has remained flat over the last several years. We haven't increased that. So we're asking for a 3% increase there. So overall, our operating budget would go up 3%.
Councilmember Nichols?
So why is on the personnel line on that slide, why is it less in 24 than it is in 23?
But we've had several people retire, and when we have people retire, if we have somebody who's at the top of their step, when they retire, that causes a ripple effect. If we have a lieutenant retire, then that means we promote a person from sergeant to lieutenant who starts either at step 1 or 2 rather than being at step 8. And then so on and so forth. And then the person that we hire is cheaper than the patrolman that came on the books. So that's that ripple effect right there.
All right, got it, thank you.
Any other questions? So this is I was asked to do a 5-year projection of some capital items that are our biggest expenditures, obviously our vehicles. This is just a 3% increase of where we would look like from FY23 to FY26. And then operating supplies, our professional services, repairs and maintenance. And so that's what our costs would look like between now and FY26 at a 3% increase. So just some projections for council to look at.
Okay. Questions, council? All right, super.
Okay,
Thank you.
awesome. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Then we'll move to agenda item 4, which is Fire Department. Ryan O'Hearn, Fire Chief, will give a presentation.
Sorry, I'm slow. You're good.
I think she's all right. She's going to feed me. Good morning, Mayor and Council. Ron Hearn, Fire Chief, and I'm here with Autumn Baker, our Executive Assistant. She's going to be feeding me all the answers, so. So we wanted to kind of start today with some things that we accomplished in FY23. As you know, we ordered a truck in October, thanks to the approval last year of a capital asset, the tiller. We're expecting delivery of that in FY25. And then we also just put 3 new brush trucks in service. And we did receive an Assistance to Firefighters grant for extrication equipment. I'll just call out that many of these projects were accomplished through the use of grant funds. And so we really tried to leverage the city's money on some of these projects.
Council President Cheatham.
Where is the extrication equipment? Which station is that kept at?
I'm not exactly sure. So we have extrication equipment on each engine. Prior to, it's probably on 2 and 5 were the ones that were updated with this grant. Prior to that, we had them on engine 3 and ladder 1. This allowed us to buy 2 more sets, so 4 tools, and they went on engine 2 and engine 5.
Thank you.
So, and then I will just, in answer to one of the questions you asked Chief Shy regarding the dispatch accreditation, we work closely with them on that, and a lot of those costs that are involved in the accreditation process or any of the software or evaluations are paid through the EMS budget.
Thank you.
Coming up for next year, we're proposing a driver operator training program. I think this is probably our #1 training ask right now. We do have an item on the agenda tonight. We received some money through one of our wildland deployments, and we're asking for that money to be put into Fund 78 and identifying $24,000 of that as actually, I think it's, I can't remember if it's 22 or 24, 22 actually, as a placeholder to pay for that. So we could accomplish that through Fund 78 if that amendment goes through tonight, which would decrease the tax ask on this project. Many of our AEDs, those are the automated external defibrillators that are on our engines. We have one on every engine and on the battalion chief rig, so there are 5 in our system. Actually 6, we have one at the airport as well. They're reaching the end of their life, and so we're looking for a solution to replace those units. This would be an outright purchase right now for $15,000. However, we're also evaluating kind of lease options, and so we could potentially accomplish that purchase either through Fund 78 savings or something else.
Chief, if you've got 6, are all 6 at end of life?
5 of them are for sure.
Okay.
So I think the other one, the battalion chief rig, might be a little newer. But
Okay.
we had planned on replacing just the ones on the engines at this
Oh,
point.
we have Josh.
Yeah, just one follow-up with that. What's the lifespan on AEDs?
It's about 5 years
Okay.
is what we're being told. Ours are much longer than that. We do generally tend to get longer than advertised life out of much of our equipment,
Okay.
just through necessity.
So those lease options probably going to be based on a 5-year lifespan.
Yeah, we
whereas-
actually, and this was just recently, we became aware of a program where they basically lease you, it's a 10-year lease, and you get the unit replaced 2 times during that 10 years. If they come out with any new technology, they will upgrade you within, I think it's a year to that new platform. And so this keeps you in compliance, and it also price locks what that unit is.
Okay.
And so we just learned of this program, and so that's why I say that the 15 would be for a replacement. But if we decide to do something like a 10-year lease to keep us in updated equipment, then that would decrease that annual ask, but it wouldn't be a one-time.
May I add a follow-up comment?
Sure.
Equipment like this there are real liability issues if we use that equipment that it's past its lifespan and its advertised lifespan and it fails. I'm very interested in that lease option that can keep it within specified times.
Yeah, we just learned of it last year, and we're pretty interested in it as well.
Okay.
Councilmember Nichols.
Yeah, just curious, do they get used very often?
They do, but it's kind of one of those, very often would be subjective. I would say no, not very often. We do use them, but they're kind of an irreplaceable
Right.
item that if you're stuck in a situation where
Right,
you
you
need
have
it,
just
there is
more
no
curious.
substitute. Yeah, we do use them, but I would not characterize it as often. Then some of the other programs that we're hoping to address, and these are all things that we try to do within the budget, other than the BC office remodel. We've been trying to purchase extractors each year to decrease our people's exposure to carcinogens, allowing them to launder their protective gear more frequently. This battalion chief office remodel, this was a proposal by our people to do a remodel. Our battalion chief office at Station 2 really is kind of lacking in professionalism and just frankly accommodations for our personnel. Their office and bunk room is all one room, separated just by a wardrobe, and so whenever they have a vendor or an employee that they need to meet with, they're really meeting with them in their dorm room. It's just around the corner, and so we'd really like to come up with a more professional setting. However, this is one that I will admit, we probably need to look at a larger station remodel or something to address training needs as well, and so. And then lastly, this Western Fuels Reduction Grant, this is a grant we received for fuels reductions in the Johnny Creek area. This is a pass-through grant. It has a 10% in-kind match. And so this is just budget authority for this grant pass-through.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilwoman Lyric.
Just to your point about the battalion chief office and the remodel, if you do need to look at a larger station remodel, then what are your thoughts about asking for this part now? Is it worth doing a temporary fix if we're going to do a bigger thing, or would you put that off?
We would likely put this off. What we have now is serving our needs, but this is a situation where I would rather do it right than do it twice. And so this is one of the projects that we had identified that we would like to get done, but we realize that we probably don't have the right solution at hand right now. And so
I agree with the idea of needing a more professional environment for the meetings that you have, and it's not a good idea to be right there basically in your dorm room. But I would also want us to look at not doing something now if we're going to do something bigger soon.
Absolutely, and we're searching for the right solution to it, not just a temporary fix.
Council President?
To expand on that, if you're going to do a larger remodel, what's that going to entail? How, are you going to gut it and start over, or are there specific areas that you would look at doing something with?
So in addition to needing a solution for the battalion chief's office, we also need a solution for our training room over there at Station 2, which I'm sure most of you have probably been there. It really doesn't accommodate an entire platoon. That station was built in the 60s, and we have added the ambulance service as well as Station 5 and some personnel in that time. And so it really, we've kind of outgrown that space. And
So it's going to need an addition?
yeah. And we're going to need to come to you with a proposal to see what that looks like, whether it's remodeling that station, potentially moving that station. And this is where I'd like to come to you with a well thought out program to really analyze where all of our stations are, because those stations, the newest station we have in our system is Station 5, that was built in 1993 on a bond after the Johnny Creek fire in the early 90s. And so maybe the locations of our station don't reflect where we would put them if we were designing the system today. And so before we come to you and say, well, we need to build a new station or we need to hire a bunch of new people, we want to make sure that our existing infrastructure is being well deployed and well located. So
Would we be better off taking that $15,000 and hiring an architect and get a look at what needs to be done at that station?
yeah, we certainly could do that. And that's, this is just a project that was on our list. I'm not, we understand, and we could even look at using that 15,000. Really what I'd like to do is engage in a process of evaluating our station placements overall in our system that takes into account our current call volume, and our current resources, and really helps us diagnose our system and see how well it's serving the community.
Councilmember Marchand?
So Northgate can change that, correct? I mean, when you start looking at 3
Yeah.
and where they all are.
Absolutely, and Station 3 is our busiest station at this point. It's flip-flopped in the last few years. It used to be our central core station, which was Station 1, and now it's Station 3 that has the highest call volume.
Okay.
But with the projection for industrial growth on the south end of town, I think that may put some pressure on the other end too. I mean, what Ryan's talking about needs to be a real long-term look at where we need to spend a whole bunch of money to build a new fire station.
And it may be more than one in the end, correct? But I agree with that, but I also see that with our police department, right? We're running out of one spot in the middle versus substations where guys are responding to. So it's hard when you're looking at dumping money into older buildings or older places to take care of it, where the future may be new buildings and new locations.
Yeah. Next slide is some of our revenues. We do get some funding from the FAA and the airport grant to help operate that fire station out there at the airport. We get permits, fire prevention permits to do inspections, or actually this is more like new construction, evaluating suppression systems and things like that. State and government grants, we do $27,000, and actually that number will stay flat through the SHSP and the HMEP to support our hazmat and our technical rescue teams as state resources. We operate the regional assets.
Mr. Mayor?
Okay, I got Councilmember Mangum and then Council President Cheatham.
Chief, I apologize. I need to go back to that prior slide for objectives for 24. So I don't see on here the tone system. And I know we had been in conversation, let's see what the county's going to do. Is there any headway on that? Because that's something that
It's on
should
my
probably be
ask,
on
and
there.
I'll go over that in my capital presentation
Okay.
on the EMS side.
Okay, Council President Cheatham?
I hate acronyms, and every business has them. Could you go through those last couple you just shot at us?
Yeah, it's the hazmat preparedness grant and the state homeland security grant.
Okay.
I apologize, I try
No,
not to use
it's-
jargon, but,
It's so common, we all do them.
and they're annual grants that
Same
we've
space.
participated in for about 20 years, and they're pretty level at that. And then, as Chief Shy mentioned, we do engage in the deployments for the wildland, and again, this is just budget authority, that we would expend that if we have a known revenue source to fund that. And that's good for our system, it's good for our people to be able to get out and operate on these large incidents. They get a lot of very good experience. It's good for the city. We are able to cost recover some funds for the use of our assets on there. And it's really a no cost to the city because the incident pays 100% of the personnel costs and then does pay the city some money for the use of that asset.
Question.
Yeah,
Then maybe it's a question for us. So that when our assets go out on that, right, we're burning them up a little bit,
We are.
right? We're taking some time off them. When we get that money back, do we put that somewhere to replace it, or does that just go in the general fund?
I think it goes back to the fire.
Yeah, so we have on our budget amendment request tonight, we have 2 fire deployments that occurred in the fall of last year, and we're requesting those to go to Fund 78. And the idea is that we would be able to start developing some funds to help maybe fund an upgrade or a new purchase or to do other
Well,
projects.
And I guess that would be as I look at that, I'm going, if we're using up a piece of equipment, right, that would last another year, if we didn't use it up and we have to replace it, when those funds come in, should we not earmark them for equipment, for trucks, for whatever it is we're doing versus just going into a fund that could be used for anything, right? And then we have the ask the next year for a new fire truck.
Yeah.
Or, I'm just asking.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we absolutely would support that, and is kind of the model that we've done with this budget amendment that you'll see tonight, because we want to kind of participate in solving some of our own capital problems and controlling our destiny.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
You know, I talked to a
Council
couple of firemen who were deployed last fall, several months ago, and they not only learned about those big fires, they also learned about mistakes that were made and things that they saw that were poorly handled. And when their time comes, I think they learn a lot from just being there and watching how screwed up you can get in a huge event. They had a lot of stories to tell.
Yeah, the amount of experience that they gain on those incidents is invaluable.
They bring that back to us. It's,
Yeah, it contributes a lot to our system. This is some of our personnel numbers. I won't read every box to you. I will just point out that we do have a projected increase for FY '24 on our overtime line that takes into account some of the increases in wages. And then I believe those 2 lines there are flipped, actually. I believe the scheduled and the unscheduled got flipped, the increase. Because, let me double check that. Is that, you recall this?
They were in the line.
I think we may have fixed them
inverted
that,
The 2, the scheduled and the unscheduled, which we'd identified and let HR know that they would need to correct them.
Yeah.
But now the line overrides the system until they correct that budget projection sheet, or
Yeah.
salary projection sheet. And so they are aware of it, but they'll correct it.
The numbers are right, though. It's just the
leave it
line
flipped,
that
because
they
that
just
seems
need to
like
be
an awfully
flipped.
large increase on the
because it
scheduled
ended up in the wrong
overtime.
column, so.
The scheduled overtime would be, our people work a 56-hour work week, and the federal standard is you can only work them 53 hours without paying overtime. And so that's part of, sometimes we'll say scheduled overtime, and that's overtime that's built in just by virtue of their schedule. And then we also pay holiday pay out of that line. Unscheduled overtime is really where we're asking for a little bit of a bump. Our budget has been flat the last few years, not accounting for wage increases. We are working that into the budget this year. However, things are starting to open up after COVID, and we're hoping to do more training and send people out to gain some of this knowledge, not just on incidents, but to be exposed to new ideas, and that will drive that unscheduled overtime number a bit. And then working out of classifications, I wanted to call this one out because if you look at historically in what our experience is, and I don't know whether I should look at the slide or at mine, I just want to make sure they're the same. But if you look at our expenses, in 20, we had $8,000, in 21, $8,500, in 22, we had increased amount there because we had a position open for a while that caused us the need to expend more working out of class, and that's when someone at a lower rank works up to an upper rank. Specifically in this case, this is lining out the captain to battalion chief line. And so our 3-year average is $9,000, but really since we put this in, we only budget every year for about $1,000. And what we're asking is this ends up, it's an expense that we know we're gonna have. It ends up eating into our other personnel lines, and so we're just asking to fund what our experience is. And so our request this year is for $9,600, and that takes into account of about the 3-year average. So that's why you're seeing an increase in that line. These are our personnel and operating. This operating number looks a little bit big, but one of the things missing from this slide is our debt service, which is we currently have $203,000 a year in payment for the 3 new fire trucks that we purchased in 2019. That was on a 10-year, I'll call it a lease, but it's really a loan to purchase. We don't give them back at the end of 10 years. They're ours. And so that's $203,000 a year. And then we also have some unplanned retirement numbers that go into that line. So really, though that line looks big, our overall operating request just for materials and personnel is $692,388 of that 1.2. So a lot of that is debt service and other lines. So that's why it looks big. So really the only things that we're carrying over asking for projects to fund, we've got a fairly flat operating budget for FY23. Again, the driver operator training is something that we've proposed to pay for out of Fund 78 with the amendment that we have before you tonight. So if you choose, we could not include that in the budget ask. And then also on the ADs, we're exploring again what the best solution is for those instead of the quick solution.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Nichols.
Hi, could you go to the previous screen? So you have capital improvements of $1.8 million in 23 and 0 in 24. Could you explain that
Yeah,
difference?
so the capital, that 1.843 was the ladder truck that was approved in
okay.
FY23, and that came out of excess reserves.
Right, okay, that's
That's
what I
just
thought. Thank you.
reflecting that authority that was granted. We do anticipate, now that we're on the capital projects, so in FY24, the station alerting is on here. It wasn't part of our other project. We're moving forward. We've contacted the vendor after last week's ARPA discussion, and then we're also still pursuing options with the county on that. I present to the county on Wednesday of next week, and that is part of our capital ask to them as well. As we look to FY25 and FY26, I think the question that we kind of briefly discussed over station improvements and new stations, where are we growing? And my plan is to bring to you something that really allows us to plan for that. And it's probably going to involve hiring a consultant that uses some predictive modeling to take our call data and our trends and look at our existing infrastructure and really give us a snapshot, or not just a snapshot, but an in-depth dive to where our stations should be and for current and future needs.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Along that line, I mean, if we talk about industrialization at the south end of town, more commercial, more industrializations, would that change the way you equipped a fire station to handle calls from that area, or is it basically the same thing?
I think, you know, if it entailed a lot of vertical structures, you know, high rise, you know, then we may evaluate whether another aerial apparatus or whether we could move our aerial apparatus and where it's going to be best located. Currently, we're somewhat limited on where we can put our aerial apparatuses because Station 2 and Station 3 won't accommodate those larger vehicles, so we're stuck with Station 1. So certainly as we look about expanding the system or building or remodeling a station, then we want to take that into consideration of planning to be able to house the apparatus.
How high does a building have to be to qualify to use that thing? Is it 3 stories, 5, 10?
Yeah, really the extent of our ground ladders would be about 3 stories. And so if it's anything above 3 stories, obviously it's based on density, you know, one building over 3, you know, that's 4 stories may not necessitate an aerial apparatus in that section of town. We'll still probably leave it in our core. The idea there is as well that they can respond out to the fringes and support those other first due engines. So there's a lot of talk now about deployment models and whether, you know, $2 million fire engines are the right resource to be throwing at every call. So we hope to be staying in front of that and making good informed decisions rather than just operating like we've always done. So.
Thank you.
Questions, council? Okay, super. Thank you, Chief. Then we will move to agenda item 5, which I believe the chief is going to stay there. Ambulance Fund. Ryan O'Hearn, Fire Chief, will give a presentation.
So this is just to kind of give you an overview. I just want to really front load this with saying that these numbers are pretty preliminary. This is all driven by us engaging with the county in this same type of development. Nothing in this presentation affects the city of Pocatello's tax ask. This is all just budget authority to be able to utilize the funds that are approved under the ambulance district budget process as a pass-through at the city. So some of the projects that we've completed there is ambulance and EMS assets. Again, we've been very successful with our grants on the EMS side as well as the fire side. And we have been very aggressive in training additional paramedics to help anticipate any increases in service demand and also have more people to kind of share that workload to hopefully decrease some employee burnout. In FY24, we'll just be finishing up the project of, we just sent 5 employees we currently have in school right now for paramedic training in Madison. And we anticipate closing that out in 24, and then also we are hoping to do some different things with the ambulance, and I'll go over those as well. These numbers represent kind of additional slight increases. These are somewhat out of order that you saw in the previous one. The working out of classification on the ambulance side is pretty minuscule. But again, on this side, the unscheduled overtime is probably our largest increase over a traditional. One thing that we are doing, and this is kind of information, and then we'll work with finance to do this, but we currently break out our South County budgets into 3 different budgets. We have a LAV ambulance budget, a Downey budget, and an income budget. We're going to work with finance, and I don't know whether that's approval by you, but we want to consolidate that 3503 and 3504 line all into 3502, so that moving forward, we really will just have 2 systems that we run, and that's our North County system, which is our professional full career staffed model through the city, and then our volunteer South County lines in the south. So these numbers reflect an increase in the seasonal rates that HR presented previously. This is just kind of an overview, and again, these are very preliminary numbers as we haven't had an opportunity to engage with the county yet. But what I really want to call out is some of the CapEx projects and equipment. We're trying to really rethink some of the things and some of the models of how we're doing the ambulance budget, and we're doing that in conjunction with our partners, you know, in the police department. Let's see, is our 100,000? Dispatching's not on this one.
Because we built it into the interfund.
Oh, that's right. So one of the things we did this year, thank you, Anna,
Yep.
is we built $100,000 this year as kind of a starting point. Traditionally, the county has not, they've supported dispatching, and as far as they pay for the software and the training, the emergency medical dispatch training, they paid for a lot of the things covered in the accreditation process. But one thing we've just failed to implement is they've never actually paid for the service. And so this year, we are approaching the county to start paying for dispatching services. And while it probably isn't what it needs to be, this year we're starting it at $100,000 to just help support that process. And so that number was included in the increase that you would have seen in our interfund number from the 110 to the 227.
Mr. Mayor, before we move on,
Council
could you go back to
President.
that slide, please? You know, when I say remount ambulance, it makes me think of cavalry in the 1880s. What is a remount ambulance?
So one of the things that many agencies, including us, have been doing is we'll take an ambulance and we'll have an ambulance built. And a new ambulance is about $240,000. And what we find is that after you put 150,000 miles on it or 200,000 miles on it, the chassis is worn out, but the box on the back is still viable. It's an aluminum box. And so a remount is where you take the box off of an old ambulance and put it on a new chassis and you save about $50,000 or $60,000 in that process to not rebuild that box. And we usually get 1 or 2 remounts out of a box with the company that we've been doing. And it's kind of a paradigm shift that happened over the last 10 years, and many manufacturers are now doing that, and it's saving people money, agencies and taxpayers. We did put on here, we do have a capital ask to the county for the cost share of the station alerting system. I strongly believe and will advocate to them that that is a shared cost of operating the system. And then we do have currently out there an ambulance that we submitted for a grant for, and we'll approach them to purchase another command vehicle as well. So that drives that $687,000 capital ask to the county.
Councilwoman Lyric?
I have a question. I mean, it's not really capital, but going back to, it's personnel related. So back to the outcomes and the objectives for '24, the paramedic training. I'm very much in favor of increased training for our employees, but I'm also wondering about the number of employees and just that we have enough and that we're not putting too much stress on the ones that we have. And that's a big concern. And I'm just wondering, are there discussions about number of personnel in addition to training of personnel?
As you saw during the personnel presentations on the 25th of May, we had 6 paramedics on that list. And it's because we know that we're at a point where we need to add capacity to the system. And what that looks like is probably either there's many options. You know, it could be a peak staffed ambulance in North County. It could be an asset in South County. And we're trying to stay ahead of that and keep that on the radar with the commissioners so that they know that growth is needed and is coming and that we're planning for that. Right now, the 6-person ask was as a budget authority placeholder, if you will, so that as we engage in this process with them, we can say, we think that we need to add capacity to the system. What are some ways that we can do that and have it funded? You know, they have some of the same constraints that you do with their funding. The county is a little bit different in that about half of our ambulance budget is through levy, and the other, more than half, is through user fees. And so it is fee-supported system. It doesn't rely solely on tax levies, and so we'll work through that process with them. But we are aware, looking for, again, the right solution on that for the system.
Because I remember when we talked about that with the personnel, and I asked the same question then, because we had the 6-person ask at the time, but we also talked about how that was a placeholder, that there wasn't any immediate plans to actually get any of those people. So I just want us to really keep this in the front of our minds and,
Yeah, making the right decision for the system as a whole.
yeah.
It's at the forefront of my mind, and we want to make sure that we're evaluating what we're currently doing and asking whether how we're deploying resources is the best, and whether we need to change that, and where those people and resources need to be.
And I would just add to that, I mean, it's what is evaluating the system and what is best for the system, but also what is best for our people,
Yeah.
and not losing sight of that part of it.
Yeah, I absolutely, our people are the system.
Right.
They are
Right.
what provides the
Right.
service to the community, and so.
And by the
I don't
difference
mean
there, I
to-
meant where we
to
use
take-
them or.
To
Yeah.
take the personnel component out of that, I absolutely, the system includes our people, where they're located, and how we deploy them.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Council President Cheatham.
I understand there is a private ambulance service now operating out of Pocatello, and they're handling a lot of the hospital transfer traffic. Has that taken some pressure off of some of our personnel, particularly paramedics?
It has, frankly, that's a case where it will impact some of our revenue on the county side. But I think we can look at it as an opportunity, because it's a workload that we were having a hard time planning for and filling. That workload was not predictable. It would often come in at odd hours, specifically late at night, where and as you can imagine, if I call you at 11 o'clock at night and say, Councilman Cheatham, do you want to drive to Salt Lake? You're like, no, I've been out working all day doing something. And so that workload would fall back to our personnel that had already been on shift for 24 or more hours. And so it was very taxing for our employees. And so even though we actually have a good relationship with this company, I think they're here to serve a community need. These patients absolutely sometimes need to go to Salt Lake or Idaho Falls, but using the 911 system to do that work was very taxing. And so it has taken some of the pressure off.
Councilmember Nichols.
So for a private ambulance service to operate in Pocatello, was there any type of a licensing or accreditation or?
So they are licensed
order
through
to
the
do
state,
that?
just like we are. They do not respond to 911 calls.
Okay.
They do contracted transports. So it would be just a scheduled transport, or a facility needs a patient taken to another facility. That's kind of what they do.
Got
And
it.
it allows us to do what we do really well, which is operate the 911.
So they're not responding to emergencies or anything like that, just transfers? Got it.
Yeah.
It was really nice for us. It gave a break to our employees. We were running like crazy, more and more and more, and so this was a welcoming.
Yeah, it's, Councilmember Lurick talked about impact to our people, and the way we measure that is unit utilization, how often they're engaged in a call or training. And we recognize with 24-hour shifts that they need some downtime. And so it was kind of a pressure relief because it did take some of that. And we averaged probably about 130 transports a year last year before this company came in, and we've only done a handful since then. And so that's a pretty significant, it's not even 10% of our call volume, but because of the unpredictable nature of those, it does take pressure off the system. It's been good.
Other questions? Okay, thank you, Chief. Autumn, thank you. I don't think you could have got through that without your help, so.
That's for sure. I couldn't get through much without her.
Thank you. Then, council will move to agenda item 6 is water pollution control. Levi Adams, Water Pollution Control Superintendent, will give a presentation.
So, no.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to meet with you this morning. My name is Levi Adams. I'm the superintendent of the Water Pollution Control Department for this month. We'll see, hopefully in a few will change.
Not that you're
process.
only here this
Yeah, you
month.
said for this month, and I was like, what?
Well, you never know. Right? We'll see how it goes. For our department, everything is really driven by that IPDS permit. That's our federal permit and state permit. Through that, we have plans for the collection system in town, as well as the facility plan out at the treatment plant. We take suggestions from those plans, we feed it into our rate study, and that's how we, decide when and where we're going to do certain projects in our budget. Last year, we completed a few things. It was kind of a light capital year for us. We did our CIPP, which is basically the maintenance on a lot of the older sewer lines within the town. We did replace a old standalone backup generator at the Cottonwood Lift Station, which is down off of Riverside. We did some maintenance on some of the metal buildings out there. In the past, there was a lot of metal buildings, which they don't hold up very well. We've since changed. All new construction is usually concrete buildings that help hold up. So we are trying to keep those as long as we can, painting projects on that. Some HVAC replacement at our lab, and then of course the design for the dewatering project and the admin building. Okay.
Levi, I might just add, CIPP is cured in place lining
Right, yes.
for the people at home.
Yes. Cured in place.
Oh, I thought it was for Rick.
The acronyms.
Rick's heard that a couple times. I think he's got that one down.
Rick knows what that is, but the people at home may not.
Yeah, cured in place pipe. That's where they inject basically a PVC liner inside of the old existing either clay or cement pipes to help extend the life. It's a great project for us because those cured in place pipes have a lifespan of up over 100 years. So it's a well worth being able to do that and to continually fund that project. Like I said, and what we have coming up this following year again is we do have the rate study coming up again. We'll continue to feed projects into that rate study to keep a nice steady growth within our rates, but not overwhelm things. Our portion of that's again $50,000. We have the admin building that's been approved. It is going to go out to bid here shortly. Hopefully most of that project will be spent out of next year's budget. I believe we're going to probably see that in front of you guys' approval for sometime in late August is about the time frame after bids and everything come through. We do have phase 1 construction. You'll notice that we have several funds. You won't see any of that come through in our main operating fund. We have a capital construction fund, and that's where most of that will be coming through. You will probably see at the end of this year some budget amendments because we are spending some money out of that right now. We did ask for the authority to spend all of that money out of 074 for next year. Again, the branding and renaming the nominal costs on that, we don't foresee any major costs in that. We'll be able to take care of that with the budget that we have. Another backup generator, the original backup portable generators were bought for the Y2K scare back in, obviously, 99. They've ran their time. It's time for new ones to replace a few. And again, the CIPP, which is cured in place pipe brick.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Linda?
maybe this is a silly question, but just on the naming,
Yes.
how are you doing that? Like, who's going to decide that? Is that in-house, or are you getting input?
We're doing a lot in-house.
or-
We've had multiple suggestions, some good, some bad. We're going through all of it. The original plan is we're going to go through and in-house, in our department, we're going to come up with the names. My
You feel
staff,
reflects?
Chris and I are coming up, but we're going to narrow this down to about 10 or so names. Our staff within our department is going to narrow that down to probably 2 or 3. We'll send it out to probably just the city staff for suggestions on those 3, which we may, in one of those survey monkeys that we've seen quite a bit for almost. We'll look at those suggestions, have the ability of somebody else to suggest something. Maybe there's things that we aren't coming up with. And then once we've come up with that name, we'll come back before you guys in a work session and explain what we're going to do and get your blessing or go back and try it again.
Okay.
That's kind of that's the plan that we're going to be working towards.
Thanks. I was just curious.
Personnel and salary, we do have 31. We're actually looking to reduce numbers, but change those from 4 part-time individuals to 2 full-time. These are going to be entry-level positions. They're not going to need CDLs. They're not going to need state licenses. These are definitely just aides that are going through. It becomes a chore every year to try to hire seasonal employees. And we can use the work all year long, but we were only able to go off the system to do those seasonal employees. We'd always run them as long as we could, as long as HR would allow us with the hours that were required for seasonal. And it didn't work out well. So we're going to go with the two for one kind of deal here. We'll give up 2 to hopefully get 1 to have those employees. And then with those entry-level employees, we're hoping that we will find good enough people that then, as people move out, as jobs change, we'll be able to move those up either within our department or suggest for the other departments, hey, we have so-and-so is a pretty good worker, you might want to look at him. Knowing that these people now know the benefits that are working for the city of Pocatello. Like I said, it's not always just salary, it's lifestyle, it's that work-life balance that you can create working for the city of Pocatello.
Mr. Mayor.
We also,
Council President.
What does a seasonal employee at your department do, Levi?
they do whatever we tell them to be honest with you. A lot of it's preventive maintenance, a lot of it's cleaning, a lot of it's painting. You can extend out in the collection system. You have the operators out there that do the work out in the system, and it's an aid. A lot of what they do requires 2 people, period, just for safety. Whether you're going down into a lift station or your traffic control out and working on the streets. And so there's always a need for that other person. We didn't necessarily need another full-time licensed person. We just need that person to say, hey, go help this guy. Hey, go help that guy. It's definitely an aid position to extend the workforce that we have to help them out.
Would they be able to move into a full-time licensed position down the road should they desire?
They should, and working the way they're working, they're going to be able to apply and take those entry-level exams and licenses. So they should be able, if they choose to, they will be able to, if they want to get their CDL and work towards it, we'll be more than happy to help them. If they want to get their state license in either the operations or the collections, we will definitely help them do that. So they are going to be ready to move into those positions as they open up.
Good.
Like I said, the pay incentive won't be there for those. There is certain pay incentives for getting licensed above and beyond what your position requires. So there is a little bit of incentive that it's not a full salary incentive, but we will move those people forward as we can.
Good.
And again, we do pay for half of 2 engineers and half of 2 techs out of the engineering department as well in our budget lines. So, and here's, our expenditures. We do have, a fairly healthy personnel, fairly healthy operational budget, and then the capital outlay. You'll see the the large increase in the capital, that's that admin building. We're not showing the dewatering project because that's going to be paid out of Fund 74. We like to do that for clarity, so we know exactly what we're spending and exactly on that project. It's easy to control and to show and what we are going right there. There is our transfers again into that construction fund. That's how we're able to continually pay for these projects rather than try to go out for debt service for loans. We have $1.6 million a year that we're paying in loans on, the $21 million project that we did. We needed to do it. It's going to cost us $31 million in the end, having to pay for that. So anything that we can pay, money that we can save and put towards capital outlays ahead of time rather than get a loan, that's kind of the plan and the direction we're trying to go to. Large increases in our budgets. Fuel, obviously, it's going to be a large increase. Hopefully, after the dewatering project where we're not going to run those diesel trucks as much, that should hopefully drop down. Electricity, we got hit with the bombshell from Idaho Power. We're going up 20% as of June. We're going to go up another 10% as of the end of the year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so we threw in 30%. Hopefully that covers everything. Like I said, everything we do, we try to reduce the amount of power. We try to be as efficient as we possibly can. We're always looking for ways to curb the way we're doing things. But man, it's a hard pill to swallow a lot of times. It's a big bump.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilwoman.
why is that going up so much?
No power rate increase.
It's just the rate increase, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the rate
But-
increase.
Okay.
The way it was explained to me is we had a bad water year, so they weren't able to produce as much power through the hydroelectric system. So they had to go out and purchase power, and then the cost of natural gas went up, so it cost them more to pay for the power that they earned that way. And so the rates increases went up.
And so
Because we have a good water year and they're going to be able to do lots with the dams, I don't think the rates are going to go down.
but we're not, we didn't start suddenly using a whole lot more. or
No,
anything
that's
like that.
just rate increases. We have not increased our usage.
Yeah, I did notice my house went up.
Yeah, and as a large rate user, our increases were a fair amount more than everyone else's.
And a lot of that, if I may, a lot of the big rate users use power when power is in high demand. Water and WPC are two of those, and that was part of the rate structure that got hit the hardest, was those that are using the power when everybody wants it and there's a short supply.
Right.
There's some programs out there that they try, and that it's like, hey, if we give you a call, can you shut off and reduce your, and we're looking into it. We're trying to do some other things. Maybe that's when we exercise some backup generators, but fuel costs are high, so you're buying diesel or you're paying for power. Where's that going to work out? It hit us a little close to the summer, so we weren't able to investigate what we could do. We're going to look at that harder next year to see if there is some offsets that we can do for that, but I'm not overly optimistic about it. Again, we're going to increase the equipment. We do have some aging equipment that does need to be replaced, some older welders and things like that. Vehicles are a bit of a nightmare. I'm going to go through and budget 2 to 3 trucks every year, whether I can get them or not. So when the opportunity comes through and one is here, we'd like to have the ability to purchase it. I had 2 trucks in last year. Come December, they just canceled the orders. I have a couple trucks this year. Are they going to get in by October? Don't know. And so it's that budget authority. We need to, we'll see those trucks. Is it because I need all of those trucks? Probably not, but rather than having to come back every year and the deadlines and the timelines to be able to purchase things, I'll get a call from fleet, hey, we got a truck, we got to order it today. Do you have the budget to do it? And that's literally the timeline that you have to order these trucks now. Tom and his crew are doing the best that they can, but they're dealt with hand, and it's a difficult situation to do. So this is my solution right now. I have the budget to be able to absorb that, having that budget cost in there, but it's, like I said, you'll see trucks in there all the time. It doesn't mean I'm buying 3 trucks every year. It is not that case. It is almost, like you said, a placeholder. So if the opportunity comes up and we're able to purchase those vehicles, we will. Like I said, again, the rest of it, we've kind of covered all of these large increases already as well. Revenue, per the rate study, we increased our revenue 3% on the residential and commercial side. The large industrial billing changes slightly differently. It's all based on their usage. I go through and look over the last 3 to 4 years and kind of get a trend as to what they're doing going up and make those adjustments. I've been very conservative the last few years as far as what the revenue has been expected from our larger industries, but they're continuing to do well. And when they're doing well and working processing, they're discharging more water, and it's a rate that's going to continue to go up.
Councilman Nichols has a question for you.
So you're going to increase the rates 3%.
3%,
Right.
if approved.
Right. Does that, looks like that does not even cover your increased expenses then?
It doesn't. We're able to, being an enterprise fund, what we collect in rates is ours to use year after year
Right.
after year.
Right.
And so depending on what the capital needs are, moving up and down, our reserves are balanced in those funds are higher, and we need to continue to spend those down. Our revenue has tended to be higher than what we've predicted, and we've been very lucky to continue to be as frugal as we possibly can. So our expected expenditures have been down. So our department is healthy right now. So yeah, the increase in the revenue is not going to match the increase in the budget because we fluctuate. We save up. $4 million is tough to create every year, but over 4 years, it's a lot easier for us to build that revenue to do some of these bigger projects. It's more than a pickup truck. It's more than that. We plan for bigger projects between the $4, $5, $6 million projects in a year. We'll have to start at the beginning of that rate study. All of these rate studies, you'll see those larger projects are going to be geared more towards the end of that rate study to build that revenue up to reach those. So yeah, like I said, and when you go to the next slide, you'll see that our budget, there's the left side of the slide for it, was 16 million for, the one back, or 2 back. Yeah, so our expenses are, 16, but our revenues only predicted to be 13 because those reserves are in there, and we have that built in, knowing that we're going to be able to spend that money down the line, because year to year, you don't want to see your rates go up 10% one year, stay flat, go down to, we can't chase that way. We need to have that money there. So a nice steady increase is how we're able to pay for those.
Well, that's what the rate study's for. We for the next 5 years, we know what projects, and so that rate study supports those projects. And so some years you'll spend a lot more than you'll see coming in, but we've saved that. And other years we'll have a lot more coming in than we're spending, and that's really what that's about.
Right. Yeah, I understand. You have follow-up.
Yeah.
And then, so your department is the enterprise fund?
Yes.
It's completely funded by the fees?
Yes.
And there's no tax support? Is that correct? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Let's see. I think we'll pass through. I think just kind of a snapshot here at the end. We continue to ask for that 3%, but as you can see, for the surrounding areas and communities similar to our size, we are pretty efficient with the rates that we do charge. We're not trying to go too high with anybody. We're trying to keep that steady little 3% increase to kind of stay on the bottom half of this scale. We would need to be able to have the funds to do the projects that we need to do to upkeep the equipment that we have and still keep those rates at that nice lower end of the spectrum. Now with that, is there any more
Councilmember
questions?
Mingham.
So the unique thing that I see here in the yellow is that's for FY '24, and everybody else, well, it says
Yeah, that's
24.
24.
And everybody else there is 23, correct?
Right. There's a engineering survey that goes out to most of the cities in the answer, and we're able to pull that information of what other cities are charging. Obviously, they haven't got their budgets in, so
Right.
we're only able to do that. So that is our increase
Right.
compared to what they paid last year.
Right. No, I'm just pointing that out to say like it's interesting to see how low we are in comparison projecting forward. You know what I mean? Like it shows that we're doing a great job financially.
What's interesting is I'm looking at Chubbuck, they're twice as much, and we're the ones that run the plant.
Right.
Rightfully so.
Interesting, well, but it's interesting, you know, you look at Ammon, we're compared to Ammon an awful lot. They're
Right.
$20 more than we are, and Blackfoot, $20, you know, so.
And again, that's projected us a year ahead and them this current year. So it's just crazy.
Because they'll go up. Anyway, good job. Any other questions for Levi? Councilmember
Just a curiosity
Nichols.
question here. Those costs were per 6,000 gallons? Is that what's
There's
that
a
right?
couple that charge residentials off of their water bill.
Right. I'm just curious, so on how many gallons does a resident contribute?
That
like,
was,
per year
as
to-
far as that's a Justin question for sure. Those are numbers that kind of were an average, industry average for homes was that $6,000. That's how we calculated those. What City of Pocatello uses as far as gallons per household, I couldn't tell you.
Okay, it's
I
not-
I know big numbers at the end. I know what we get at the plant and what he produces, but I don't know.
Just curious, not a problem. Thank you.
Levi, do you know, does Idaho Falls meter, I know they don't meter their water. And I'm wondering if this is based on the same thing.
This is speculation. Idaho Falls has a lot of major industries, and I think those industries are helping to,
Absorb the cost.
They absorb the
helping
cost.
some of that cost.
Sure.
Well, they also generate their own electricity.
Yeah, Idaho Falls is a power company, that's, yeah.
And I don't know how that works. I don't know if they get a break on their power costs, so they're cheaper. I don't know if, and like I said,
that's-
enterprise funds, I know we don't commingle any enterprise funds, you know. I
We know
don't
that
help water
city-
or sanitation or help each other, but.
We know all cities are obviously different and stuff, but yeah, with that power, Idaho Falls has about $100 million a year more than Pocatello does.
Yeah, we have
However
shared, we have
that
very
works,
strict
so.
rules. We have
And
to
they have
follow.
a larger corporate tax base, like you're saying. There's a lot of large.
So it's interesting, yeah. Josh, you had a-
The other thing I would add, if you look at the median single-family consumer monthly bill for water, which is coming up, not to steal your thunder, but
Yeah.
Idaho Falls is the highest at $38.85. And if you combine the two, water and WPC together, Idaho Falls is about $3 a month more per family than Pocatello is. So I think those are two sides of the same coin you need
you
to look
jumped
at.
ahead to water?
I did.
Okay.
Just I had looked at it last night, and I noticed that I saw Idaho Falls was so low, but then water there significantly higher. So two sides of the same coin that balance out.
So
Sorry, I
Justin
couldn't keep
doesn't
your
need to
attention.
come
I
up here now?
apologize.
You're done, Justin. I got
Justin,
you.
you're good.
You know, and I
Perfect.
think one of the things when you start doing those comparisons, you look at the square miles in the two communities, and Pocatello's almost 10 square miles larger than Idaho Falls. So there's more lines to maintain, there's more lift stations, and our terrain is not as flat as
I was gonna
as
say,
Idaho
terrain.
Falls.
So that's
So
gonna- we're
the
building a
operational
mountain.
costs are gonna be higher here.
Yeah.
There's no way around
The
it.
That's
lift
also a really good
stations
point.
and stuff like that, yeah.
Well, but it sounds like we're pretty efficient because we're between the two with Idaho Falls. If
$3 and
they're
some change.
more expensive than we are, and literally, you're right. We're built in a valley. We're up and down. We're not flat. So
Yeah.
pretty impressive. Thank you. You do a great job. Thank you. Okay, with that, I see Justin coming up. Council, we good to keep going right now, or
Let's take a quick,
we're going to take a quick break, Justin.
But get comfortable.
But morning, and thank you for joining us after the break that we took. And I need to excuse Councilmember Mangum. He's got to run to Boise's. There's an awards.
it's a long run.
Well, yeah, I know. That's why I had to start early. He's got an awards thing he's got to get to, and so he needed to take off. And so with that, we'll go ahead and move to agenda item number 7 is Water Department. Justin Armstrong, Water Superintendent, will give a presentation.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Thanks for the opportunity to present our budget to you this morning. Today, we're going to start off with discussing some of our ongoing projects that are underway for FY '23. So as you are most likely aware, we have various locations throughout the city that are under construction. One of our big projects this year has been the Pocatello Creek Booster Project and transmission line. This has been a multi-year project in the making for even years beyond these start dates. But we're nearing completion on that. We've got some lines charged. We're currently in the testing process and looking to fire up that station hopefully this next month. So that station will provide additional supply and some system redundancy for the Highland Bench area, which is one of our top growing areas within the city. We've also got a.
Justin, real quick before we move from that, part of that project is right behind fire station number 3, that grassy area that's now gravel and stuff like that. There was a discussion about when is that going to get redone so that it looks nice.
Understandable, yeah. I've been in communication with the contractor about the unsightly appearance of that construction site in particular and their maintenance of. Their plan and what they've communicated to me within their 3-week look ahead is they're anticipating that some of that work will resume next week.
Okay, cool.
They're currently cutting down some of the weeds and cleaning up.
Yesterday, they cut weeds, some of the weeds yesterday.
So in the next couple of weeks, they'll start that project, and that'll be nice. Okay, good.
And there's some coordination efforts. I know that planning and development, as well as the engineering department, has put together a plan of landscape reduction behind the fire station. And so some of that area will be restored to native, just ground material that they can then do their seeding and walking paths and some things like that.
Perfect. I knew you were on top of it, but it's good for the public to hear that too, so thank you.
Our next project is on the other side of town, on the west side of town, which is our 5 million gallon tank transmission line project. Currently, we're installing about 6,500 lineal feet of 18-inch water line. There's 2 lines that are going up. One's for transmission, one's for distribution. Those are replacing some 1934 water lines. And there's many challenges with this particular project of going under the river, under the railroad tracks, as well as up the rocky terrain through that ravine. It's been a challenging project for the contractor because of the limited spaces within that area. We've also had higher river flows and some groundwater table that's increased. And so we're working through those challenges, and that construction project will lapse into our FY '24 budget with the remainder of completion and some of the retainage on that particular project.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman.
Is that the same tank that's getting the paint job?
That is one of the, so last year we completed that project on the interior paint coating. And we actually just yesterday did a post-inspection of that, dewatered the tank so that we could do a post-inspection and ensure that everything was good, so.
Thank you.
One of the other projects that we've been working on is well 2 and well 22 replacement. We currently have, within our first phase is well drilling. So we've bid that project out. We've hired High Plains Drilling to complete those wells for us. They're currently in the drilling process on well 22, which is just south of the Fred Meyer complex and building. Everything is going well on those, and we should be pumping those and developing those wells within the next few weeks as well. So the second phase of that project will involve well house construction and equipping those wells So we hope to bid that a little later this summer and then begin construction through the fall and winter months and have those online by the spring. City has recently negotiated and purchased 2 future well sites. Those will set us up for future opportunities for supply and supporting additional growth within the city. And then we're also working through our aggressive water line replacement program where we replace roughly 1.5 to 2 miles of water distribution main throughout the city. And that's internally. That's with water department staff and equipment. That's their focus.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilwoman Lyric?
I'm just curious on the future well site acquisition. I was talking with somebody the other day, so I know we did a lot of, or there was a lot of talk and you did a lot of work on exploring sites and sources and everything and quality testing and everything on the south side, looking at, the north side, looking at Pocatello Creek and Northgate and having redundancy for the Highland area and that kind of thing. But I was talking with somebody about south side, and as we develop out there, what's the situation looking like out there for water for future growth and is a future site out that direction?
Yeah, so south of the valley and central valley is where a lot of our sources are, especially a lot of our higher producing wells. As we get towards the north end and supporting some of that growth, that's where we found that we need additional supply on that north end because of the demand that's being placed on some of those booster station facilities and pumping up to the bench areas in those portions. And so, yeah, our department has done a lot of work in investigating, doing test wells, establishing right of access agreements with property owners and identifying the potential to purchase property from them. Finding land within the developed city is a challenge. And so we were able to find 2 suitable sites. Those met the parameters of water quality and quantity that we were looking for. And yeah, we're en route, and I believe we'll be set up.
We're set up well for the future.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you.
So some of our objectives within the FY24 budget, we'll have well 22 replacement carryover. I didn't include well 2 within this budget because it's coming out of ARPA funds, separate fund. But well 22 is funded by the Water Department's Capital Improvement Program. So we will have those carryover expenses for completion of the building and equipment installation. High Country tank replacement. This is a pretty large project. The High Country tank sits above Summit Drive. This was a tank that was developed in 1994 through private developers, Associated Group. It was a 1 million gallon bolted steel tank. And so due to the construction style and type of this tank, you know, typically your interior coatings only last between 20 to 25 years, where you can extend that through corrosive mitigation measures, installing anodes and other things to decelerate that corrosion rate. However, most of your corrosion occurs at the top vent of the tank as you're introducing that humidity and the air. And so structurally, you begin seeing metal loss at the upper roof section of those tanks. And we did a inspection on the coating and on the corrosion within that tank in 2012, and they said that we had a limited lifespan before we needed a new coating. what we've summarized through that inspection is the high cost of blasting and recoating a bolted steel tank is very challenging and not very successful in the application of getting a proper seal and coat on that tank. So that brings into question what the life cycle would be to extend the life for properly coating. And it was suggested versus the high cost of painting that, which could be on the order of about 600 to 700,000. And those coatings last anywhere between 20 years. That over the life cycle, that money is better spent by replacing that tank with the concrete, pre-stressed concrete tank that we would bury into the hillside. That's part of the new tank style that we've been going to. And those tanks, before their first maintenance, are 100-year tanks. They don't require any additional coating. And they deal with the elements. They're not outside dealing with the weather conditions, the freeze-thaw conditions. Our department's done a very good job with the welded steel tanks as far as maintaining those, but this bolted steel tank has been problematic for our system where it leaks through those bolts. And there's thousands of bolts in the floor, in the roof, in the walls. It was a cheaper method of construction for the developer, but the long-term costs are more for long-term maintenance, so.
Question on that.
Yes.
When you install the new tank, will it go in the same location as the old tank or in a parallel location so the old tank is still usable while the new tank's being built, or?
Correct, yeah, when the land was dedicated for that tank, it has a future pad site. And so that tank would be built adjacent to the existing tank until the new tank was operational and switched over. And then we would dismantle the old tank.
Follow up, please.
Yes.
What about size of the new tank?
So size-wise, based on our facility plan, we're going to have to reevaluate that due to some of the development. Some of the limiting factor that we've had prior to this Pocatello Creek booster has been the supply up to those existing tanks and ensuring that we've got enough within those lower tanks to pump up to the higher tanks. We're going to reevaluate based on what I anticipate is adding a little bit more volume, but based on our previous evaluation, it was showing that we were doing pretty well on storage. Problem was our overall supply.
If you put a larger tank in, is that going to affect the pressure in that area? Oh, we've had a problem up there over the years.
So, yeah, pressures, it's not going to change the hydraulic grade line.
Okay.
Because those grade lines are set. So some of the tricky balances are balancing high pressure and low pressure between ravines and valleys and how you're serving areas. And we've had some issues with higher pressures within those and reducing those down to the guidelines within the state. And so that triggered a response from the public that was not popular. We got through it. There was some changes that had to be done to some irrigation systems that were designed under those parameters, but those costs and overall, I mean, the success of it is that lowers your leakage rates, lowers the impact on the consumer's plumbing components within their system, the wear and tear. High pressures are just overall not good. I know everybody likes to be blasted in the shower and scrubbed clean if they can, but it's definitely got its cons as well. So.
Thank you.
Brent?
So going forward, if we had a developer wanted to put in a tank today, are we requiring concrete tanks and not these bolted steel ones?
We have one of our most recent developer-driven tank was the Trail Creek tank on the west side of town, and that's a partially buried concrete tank. And then a newer tank than that is our South Valley tank, which sits at the south end of town, out by Century High School, which is completely buried. It's a pre-stressed tank.
Yeah.
So that's
Do we have other bolted steel tanks that might be coming up we're going to have to replace?
this is the only bolted steel tank in our system. So,
Good, thank you.
talked a little bit about the future well site. So we're looking to develop a 2,000 gallon per minute well on the north section of town to support that city growth and establish additional supply for the future. Then we're also working on reduction of the strain on our system within the Highland Bench and reducing that well or reducing that demand on our booster stations and offsetting some of the supply to the Highland Golf Course through a well that we have up there that has been higher in nitrates and risky to place online for a culinary supply. It's currently at the threshold of arsenic. And so we can use that for irrigation. We're currently in a study process with the engineer, and we hope to present in a couple months some of the concepts and alternatives that we have on that particular project. We've also got our water replacement program that will continually fund. Some of our projects are on the west side of town, and dealing with some of those older water lines in those neighborhoods. And then, as Jeff had discussed in his presentation, we're looking at a 5-year financial plan update. So as far as personnel, salaries, and benefits, we don't have any changes in our head count there, so I don't know. Good. We are asking for an increase to 6 of our 8 lines for overtime, seasonal, on-call, and call-out. This is a total of $13,078.41, or a 6.7% increase. We feel like it's appropriate because based on kind of the variable conditions that we see on an annual basis, some of those call-out numbers can fluctuate greatly. So on call-out for water transmission, we're looking for a 20% increase, as well as the 3.5% adjustment for any employee compensation there. We haven't seen an adjustment in these lines since 2017 or 18, I believe. And so we've been dipping in between some of these lines to balance things out, but at one point it's going to catch us. We do have some newer employees that are coding towards comp time because they don't have a lot of time on the books, and so. But at some point, as they get more tenure through our department, they're going to be shifting over to most likely some overtime hours. Call out, I just wanted to point out as far as the requested budget, our call out for water transmission, we had a total of 27,000. That is a typo. It doesn't quite balance out with the requested ask there. And so that's a requested ask of 26,262. Water revenue, according to our financial planning study, we are looking for a 3% utility rate adjustment within our revenue lines. There's several assumptions that are built into that based on average water year production. That can be highly variable season to season, as we've seen through some of these drier years, but We also noticed changes in the economy and how people are using water there. You know, FY '21 and FY '22 seasonally, they were very comparable years. However, '22, some of the production was down, and we can kind of theorize that some of that is due to higher gas prices, higher food prices, and people making decisions of what's important to them, whether keeping their grass green or putting food on the table and getting to work. So,
We have Councilmember Marchand.
So when we talk about that, right, summertime water, and can you explain how we work to reduce the water usage, right, during high times and what that billing looks like? So people understand why my bill went up or my bill went down or didn't change.
right. So, yeah, back during one of our facility planning studies, it was completed about 2008, we found that our aquifer and supplies was being taxed. And we found that we needed to do something to change the pattern of usage for consumers. And so during that time, we were also through a rate study process. And one of the biggest things that came out of that study is rate design and designing rates to promote water conservation. It was the most effective and lowest cost versus increasing additional supplies to a limited recharge that we were seeing through the aquifer. And so during the summer months, we have a 2-tier structure rate design from the months of May through October, I believe, where consumers from up to 25,000 gallons per minute are charged a constant rate. And then anything above that, which can impact your higher demand customers, get charged a higher rate because the additional demand that they place and put a tax on to the burden of the system. And so that's been very effective. We've noticed that through the last 10 to 15 years, our water production has gone down on the order of about 10% versus the prior 15 years. And so that rate design is effective, it's working, and people are more aware of the use of water to stay within that consistent rate below 25,000. And like I said, that's about 80% of our customers fall within that rate.
Right. Perfect. Perfect answer. Thank you very much.
Oh, we have a question here.
So with that, has this taxing of the aquifer stopped or been reduced?
It has. As you can imagine, I mean, with our city growth, we're growing during that same period as well. And so, you know, when you're seeing a 10% reduction on, you know, we used to be around an average year about 5.2 to 5.3 billion gallons produced. Now we're averaging around 4.8, 4.9. So.
But is the aquifer being recharged at a rate equivalent to what we're using, or are we positive or negative?
You know, it depends on the year too, right? I mean, this year's completely different than prior years. We're seeing record water levels at some of our most southern sites, and some of that water coming through the valley. It's a very quick moving aquifer. We were around 20 feet, I believe, on our most southern well, and you know, this last month we were about 5 feet. The water table was 5 feet below the floor line. And so you're seeing that effect in the highway ponds where you're seeing that groundwater.
Right.
That's not the river per se. That's our water table.
All right, thank you.
Linda?
I just really want to commend you on the efforts to promote conservation. I think that's so important, and I just love that we're doing that. This is really fascinating that you can design a rate that promotes a philosophy. I mean, that's tremendous. And I was just curious about, and maybe you said this, I don't recall, but how many years have we had that rate concept or that approach in place?
Since 2008.
Since '08?
Yeah, I think it was, the study was in '08, so I think it went into effect around 2009.
Okay.
So.
That's just wonderful. Thank you.
Expenditures and expenses, overall, we're down about 7.5% over the previous year, and that's due to our capital improvement projects and our needs there. Those fluctuate greatly from year to year based on those one-time projects. And so we're completing a very large project that we had saved and budgeted for through our reserves. As Levi was kind of mentioning, you know, through our 5-year plan, what it does is establish at the end of that 5-year plan a model year. Where do you need to be with the balance of your reserves for operational expenses and to cover any emergencies? And so we've been trying to live within that plan. Some of those projects that we initially built within the plan, we've had to defer a little bit because of the high construction costs, but we're living within our plan as far as overall budget numbers and ask, and then we'll see what the next 5-year plan looks like. But we try and keep those rates down to a modest increase. But within this as well, we're looking at higher operational and maintenance costs. We're seeing increases on our plumbing, mainline fittings and meters, asphalt, treatment chemicals. Some of those we're seeing 20% increases year over year on some of those material costs. And so it's been tough, and it's been tough trying to anticipate what those lead times are for ordering that material and equipment. You know, we ordered meters back in November, and we're still waiting on that. So we used to have a 3-month lead time, and now we're seeing 8 to 12 months on
You can come get the one from my house and use it if you need it.
Just want them to shut your water off. Huh?
No, I just want them to take the meter.
Our capital needs and for equipment, we're looking at a half-ton truck and a 1-ton truck for our light vehicles. We also have some carryover expenses from our current year and just the lead times and covering between those budget years on those orders. And so that's kind of what the asterisk means there. Heavy equipment, as far as an ask, we're asking to replace an old valve truck that's currently 15 years old. The chassis is getting limped by, and anyways, it's in great need to get that replaced. And then we've got our 10-yard dump truck that we've already ordered, but we don't anticipate delivery until next year. Facility-wise, I think we've kind of discussed those in the prior slide, and then our pipeline replacement.
Justin, I'm curious. You mentioned that you're looking for a half-ton truck. Everybody that we've had come through here is looking for a 3/4-ton truck. Is there a reason why a half-ton opposed to a 3/4-ton? Seems like your equipment's heavier than like a rake for.
Yeah, I mean, some of it depends. We kind of look at the application and try and balance, you know, service trucks that are just running site to site versus potential of equipment that we might use for pulling equipment or having lift gates and things like that. So we kind of try and balance those needs. I I know we've talked about it internally. Some of those costs are very low. And I think availability might be a little bit better, so we'll explore that.
All right.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
what's the anticipated life of a vehicle at the water department?
So within our replacement schedule, we move around our equipment. I try and push that beyond believe the current policy is around 7 years as far as a replacement. I push it to 10 years and try and rotate that equipment throughout. Certain employees that put higher number of miles responding to various requests and then trickling that down to a crew that's only driving between job sites on a daily basis. And so we try and extend that, get as much life out of the vehicle as we can. We're finding that those pieces of equipment are well maintained and we're getting good life. I believe they still have decent life as we pass them down through the city as well, so.
Linda?
Quick
Thank you.
follow-up. As of yesterday's cemetery presentation, we have a new standard. As long as your truck stops, it's still good.
Against a tree.
If you can stop it against a tree, you're fine.
Well, our valve truck has been questionable.
That's true. That's true, actually. Smart Alex.
So I think Josh already covered this slide. I don't know if. Yeah, based on our proposed single-family bill, that median customer is about 6,000 gallons per month. That's based over the year. And so this is the metric that our financial consultants have evaluated and utilized as far as a comparable and representative of what's going on within our customer base. So as you can see, we're kind of right in the middle. He indicated we're below Idaho Falls or our neighboring community, the one that we get compared to the most. So they do have a flat rate structure still. And I know that they are working through some of the challenges to get things metered in that. But it's a hard push.
I anticipate
Politically.
when they have to meter everything up there, their bills are gonna go quite a bit higher. You just can't do a $30 or $40 million project for nothing, so.
Since we're
Scott?
talking about meters, and I know we talked about this yesterday, right?
to
The
keep you-
lead, I know. The lead lines,
yes.
right, going to the meters, and how we're chasing those down and getting those changed, and the challenges. I mean, the city side's pretty easy. We got to take care of that. The challenge is going to be from the meter to the house. And do you have any idea how many there are, and how old is that system that we're running lead pipe?
So based on our inventory on the city side, we don't have any lead lines that meet the definitions set out by the EPA. We do have some lines that have what they call a lead gooseneck, which is basically it's a pliable section of pipe that was utilized to connect and attach that service to the main. But under the definitions through the EPA is not considered a lead line. We're in the process, and that's part of our aggressive replacement program, is identifying some of those areas where we have observed that material in, and getting those out, removing them as quickly as possible. We've also been very proactive on galvanized line replacement. We're seeing old galvanized lines and sections of that on the service line that are basically have a high risk of failure, and so we're trying to be proactive and remove those sections. And part of the new lead and copper revisions that were revised as of August, the latest revision was August 2022, which requires that municipalities inventory every service line within the system, as well as the material types on the consumer side. So the challenge with that is, the city's had great records on what we're maintaining within our databases. The challenge is we don't fully know what material types exist on the backside and on the private side of that. So we're currently in the process of evaluating some of those things. There's things that you can do based on dates of installation, dates on permits. We're gathering all that data to find out and list the probability of whether those could be lead or if they couldn't. Talking with regional plumbers, they haven't come across any lead service lines within their private section. And so, and based on our lead and copper sampling, we're well below the limit. And that's allowed us to have a reduced sampling program for lead and copper because we've proven year over year. But that all resets as part of this new revision. And so there's new requirements with that. There's additional sampling that will have to occur at school facilities, childcare facilities, and there's a lot of regulatory effort on that.
Perfect. Other questions for Justin?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
When I went through and looked at all these, we highlighted Idaho Falls. If you budget in 3% for these other cities as well, Twin Falls is the only city that has cheaper utilities than we do. And the other thing I'd like to highlight and give credit, I look at Blackfoot here, that's $3 cheaper, almost $4 cheaper. I don't have to boil my water. And so I want to just give credit to our water department and to our utilities, because not only is it an incredibly affordable utility relative to our area, it's just the best quality as well. And so thank you.
Thank you. And to add to that too, I mean, it's kind of like Rick had indicated before, Pocatello is not flat. A lot of these comparable communities. And so each community has their own challenges for sure. Based on our benches and some of the barriers that we have across railroads and rivers and other things, I think operationally and comparatively between some of these other cities, we do a good job maintaining those lower rates. So.
It's interesting. I'm looking at all of those other communities up there. I don't see any of them that have a mountain in them, but Pocatello. So just throw that out there. Thank you. You do an incredible job. Your employees do a great job. I mean, this just is a testament to our employees throughout the city that they really do a good job. So thank you.
They really do. Thank you.
Yep.
Is that a literal mountain or a figurative mountain?
Any literal works for me. We'll move to agenda item 8 is utility billing. Cindy Robbins, utility billing director, will give a presentation.
Well, good morning, Mayor, City Council. I'm happy to be here and answer any questions you may have. So I used to throw a bunch of numbers and percentages at you guys, and because that's what we do, and ours is a lot of output. And he who will not be named, Gene, decided that was boring and asked me to list a project that I'm proud of. And like says, I don't really have projects to do, but I am very proud and feel very fortunate to work with the staff that I get to spend my days with every day. So therefore, I am going to take a twist on my numbers and percentages to the outcome that my staff does. So it begins with a meter reading, ensuring water consumption is read accurately and timely. Suspected issues are rechecked timely to ensure accurate billing. Setting up closing accounts, payment processing, bill questions, handling non-paid accounts, handling cordial and not so cordial accounts. Review of 4,600 customers' accounts weekly by one individual. Daily deadlines for this date-driven department. Communicating good and bad information. Monthly reports to enterprise funds and providing interdepartment support. Ends daily knowing each staff member played a key role in teamwork, dedication, work, and efficiency. And those of you that know me, I made that through without crying, so. The one thing that we did do this year that has been very nice and been waiting for a long time was we got some check scanners. We process anywhere up to 80,000 checks a year. We've always had to hand stamp the back of those and run manual tapes to balance to our batches in the computer. We were able to get some check scanners that now endorses those checks for us, runs the totals, which makes it a lot easier for us to find if we are off balance at all. It also means that finance doesn't have to take a stack of checks to the bank. It uploads and directly sends it right to the bank. So that is something we're enjoying very much. As far as our personnel, salaries, and benefits, we've maintained 12 for the last 8 years. Revenue, so we are fees, we get our late notices, shut-off fees, things like that. So the 3% doesn't really apply to those because they're flat fees. We are not a tax fund, we are an enterprise fund. We work for the enterprise funds, and therefore, through the rate study, they pay a percentage to have us do their billing and all that stuff. So per the rate study, that was 23 and 24 numbers there. Expenditures and expenses, there's our operating. This year, Jean had me move because pickups are costing more now, take that out of the light duty lines and put it down to the capital improvement. So you'll see my operating and maintenance line was reduced by the amount. My capital improvement basically went up. And so this one, let's see, next one, I'm not seeking anything over a 3% increase. So the big one, projects and equipment for me, a year and a half ago, we had one of our vehicles that was involved in an accident, totaled our pickup. Like Levi and everybody's been explaining about the vehicles, we've been waiting for a year and a half to get that replacement pickup. And we did receive a $12,500 insurance check on that. And then I did have the $41,200 budgeted for a replacement truck. I'm hoping to do a budget amendment and move that money forward for 2024 to add with the 3% I did add was to the pickup, and along with 53,315 for that total 107,015, because I will need to be ordering 2 trucks. I'm on my rotation schedule for a normal truck. Like says, my truck got canceled this year, wasn't delivered with all the others this year, so I'm still waiting for that. So like says, I will be asking for 2 trucks this year. Any questions there?
Questions, Council? Council President Cheatham and then Councilmember Nichols.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask about the kiosk for all city use per CFO attachment. What is that? Where's that going to be? What's that going to do?
He'll appreciate this one. So Gene would like to see a kiosk machine that is going to be for the whole city use. He did ask me to put it in my budget. Obviously, I can't be purchasing things for the whole city, so I did say I'd put it there. I did not add it into my total. You will notice that. I think you'd like to reduce the cash, and hoping a kiosk will do that. And so I'm not, I like how many options we have to pay right now. I'm not fully on board, he'll tell you that, for a kiosk in my department, mainly because the more options I have and how money can come in, and if it's slow, it does cause me a problem with shut-off days, late fees and things. So I really don't want to be the guinea pig with the amount of money we do bring in. Plus the fact a kiosk machine doesn't give change. I have a hard time with asking that money because $10 to a lot of our customers is a lot, and if it doesn't give the change and wants to apply it to their next bill, I'm not sure that that's something that I like. But for the rest of the city, and I'll let Jean explain his thoughts on that, if you would like.
Sure. I think we still have to do more for less. And so if you go to McDonald's, I hate those kiosks. They don't work. But you go to the airport, we all use kiosks, right? I mean, check-ins, stuff like that. And so it is a technology that's coming. And so if we could put a kiosk out front And if we're having a hard time hiring people for the cost of one person, that kiosk will last for 5 years. People can come in, they can pay their bills, and down the road, you know, they could pay their tickets. We could even possibly move it to the rec side where, you know, they could just go ahead and punch in the ticket and get through to the pool, things like that. So I just like to explore it. That's the purpose of this. Even though she doesn't agree with me.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Not everybody can agree with you on everything, you know that. I
That's
mean,
right.
you know, that's what my job is. Anyway,
Thanks.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Any questions for me? Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
We're done, right?
Then we would move to agenda item 9 is Capital Contingency Fund 78. Gene Hills, Chief Financial Officer, CFO, will give a presentation.
This will be a very long presentation. Honorable Mayor, Council, thank you very much. I would also like to, again, thank the Finance Department, but especially Brandy she has been the one that has really maintained this fund for us. And if I can, I just want to clarify a couple of things. This is dated as of the last amendment we did, which is February. So because we haven't got the current amendments in, it does not have all of those that we'll do tonight. But you can see currently the department breakout is basically $1.2 million. The emergency balance is about $800,000 for a total of $2 million. We've got some things that we're going to work on to adjust this with the new software system. We'll be able to have this included in it. Right now it's a spreadsheet, and anytime that you do those things, they can kind of get out of whack. And so we're excited to get that done, but that's really where we're at on Fund 78. If you'd like more detail, we can break that out to which departments have those. And I think it's really important though too that we encourage especially the tax departments to utilize this so that we can start putting money away for these big asks and, you know, smooth out that burden.
So, I've got a couple questions, so I'm going to turn to the council first. Josh, Rick, Linda, and Brent.
I understand it. I'm good.
That's the comment of the day.
Finally, you figured something out.
It's also true.
Go ahead, Josh.
As you integrate that in the software, is there also the capacity to have a part in that software what the departments have earmarked it for?
Yes.
Great. That's
so that we can get down to like a project line
Yeah.
and stuff. And as you know, it's just, Ann did a great job, Brandy's done a great job, but you just get out of whack. And it's just really hard to answer questions correctly.
It'll be better to have it on so that it's there and everybody has it instead of written, so good. Rick?
I'd like to ask about the differentiation between these two account balances. Why are there two in one fund?
So again, it's just a line item, right? If you will. So in the fund, underneath the fund, we have different line items. One that is broken out for police. They have a savings for, as you've seen, to fix the back.
That'll be like a 78 dash something something?
Yes.
Okay.
And then at the bottom, we also try to set aside funds for an emergency,
What's that?
like software. No, I'm just saying that, but we're trying to set aside emergencies so that we're capitalized correctly, so that if let's say that Richard comes to us and says, look, our air conditioning system's gone down. We haven't put enough money aside in the building side. So at least we've got a place to start going that we don't have to always go to the taxpayer. That's the idea.
So they're unobligated funds then?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
thank you. A better way to say it, thanks.
Linda?
And I would like to, because I do understand this fund, I would like to bring up a specific project and maybe get the council to commit to having, this under Fund 78. When we were talking about our ARPA list, one of the things that was on it, that was the elevator for the library. That is something that is, I think, a really high priority. It's a pressing need for both our staff and their ability to serve the public, but also the public and their ability to use the facility. It is a problem not having that library. And so I think we need to get that done. I want to get it done in the best way possible. I personally didn't feel that ARPA funds were the way to go for that, but we talked about that would be a Fund 78 project. So I'd like us, while we're talking about Fund 78, to make a commitment that we're going to fund, and we can round it to 100,000. I think the current number was 104,000 if we want to be specific. But I would like to say that we're going to expend those funds from Fund 78 to accomplish that project and get that elevator replaced. And also allow staff to be able to then get working on that, because we know there was a 6-month lag time from the time we say we're going to do it for them to be able to actually get it done, so, or get it started. So I'd like to make that proposal that we commit that at this point.
So council, they'll need to bring a bid in front of us for approval, but they are going to need, you're right, they are going to need approval to at least move forward. Are we okay with Fund 78? Let's start on this side.
So that was part of my comment earlier when we were talking about getting bids, right? Because we're behind, we just get behind the 8 ball waiting for people to get a big one when they have a problem. So we never get an actual number until well down the road. But as I look at this, right, we have 800,000, is that correct?
853.
And
in
it's not
emergency.
committed. So to me, the elevator thing is the thing I've been pushing since day one is maintenance. And that to me becomes part of a maintenance number, right?
And I agree.
I personally don't have an issue with that. I just don't like our process. I don't like the bid process. I wish that department heads would come to you, I guess, is the way they need to do it, is come to the mayor and say, look, here's a problem, I have to get a bid. And then that doesn't mean you're gonna get the money or the project's ever gonna go, but at least at that point, we have an actual number to go, yeah, we can do that.
Can I just comment on that real quickly? Because I do believe
He did get a
he
bid.
did give us a number,
Right.
so it is
Right,
104,000.
Rounded to the nearest 1,000, I don't think that's a bid.
Yeah, he did round to the nearest. So I can follow up, council. I can follow up on that and see. It's got to come in front of you anyway beforehand. I think what I'm hearing is a commitment so that they can move forward to do that, so we can bring it in front of the council, is what I'm hearing. Josh, you had something?
The one other thing I just wanted to add to Scott's point is that sometimes those bids, it costs money to go out and achieve those bids because you have to have design.
Right.
But I would say I've seen cases where, I think the slide, for example, they came to us and said, well, before we can fully go with the bid process, we need some money to even get to that point. So I think that's part of the difficult nature of what you're.
Some of that's true.
Right.
So, some are not the case.
Right,
That's
right,
and you're right,
right.
there, right? And I'd love to see bids, but that's just
I
one
understand,
consideration.
right.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable with moving it like that, or no? Or you would need to hear more comments? Brent?
Yeah, could you go back to previous slide, please? So the department total, the 1,000,001, is that all earmarked and obligated by departments?
Yes.
So anything we'd be talking about here would be coming out of
Out of
the,
eight.
out of the emergency side of it. All right, and then do we know if the library has been putting anything aside or has any, reserves or anything they could help contribute toward this? I'm all for it, it needs to be done, but.
They have the reserve amount. We've got a reserve amount, but I don't believe they've got any excess reserve. That's something we'd have to double check
I
on.
think it's pretty small, but we're not sure of
Yeah.
that number, but we can get that.
If anything, it's very small.
Yeah.
This came out of the blue, and it was not something they knew that they were saving for.
So, Rick, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm okay with it. My question, like Brent, was, do they have any Fund 78 funds set aside that should be tapped first before we go to the unobligated funds?
So why don't I do this, council? It sounds like we're okay with the idea.
Go ahead
Go
and
ahead.
finish.
I was just gonna say, why don't I ask Eric to move forward with this, knowing that the funds will be available. We will do the follow-up and find out if they have any funds. I don't believe they have any funds in 78, but they may have some excess reserves. They may have something that we could use somewhere, but if not, then we've got the money here. But we'll definitely deplete all that they can without depleting their reserves.
I'd like to see the building official get involved in this project, since no deprecation on Eric, but I don't think building elevators is a librarian's primary task.
So,
And I think he would have some expertise that could be usable
so
there.
let's do this. Richard, you're back there. Why don't you get with Eric so that you can be involved in this and bring it forward to the council in the near future? It's a 6-month, we're 6 months out, but if I remember right, the library said they needed half or something like that to get it ordered and stuff, and so we may have to figure out what to do with half, but we'll go from there. But did they have that? Yes.
Yeah, I've mentioned this in the past. Maybe the entire elevator needs completely replaced, the carriage, the rams and everything, but maybe not. I mean, maybe it's circuit boards and, just whatever's necessary.
Yeah,
to be
I'll get
repaired
with
is what I would
Eric
say.
and see where we're at. Also, just let you know that the elevators are governed by the state of Idaho.
Right.
So through the occupational licensing division on the elevator, so that will also have to be permitted through them and approved before that replacement also. But I'll get with Eric. and
Okay, we
try
need
get some
we'll
numbers.
start the process, it sounds like.
Is the library considered a historic building?
Yeah.
The Carnegie part.
The part of it is, the Carnegie
Yeah.
part, but the newer part I don't believe is.
Right, but it was originally in a Carnegie library, and that is a historic building, and then they added on in the 70s,
I don't know, I'm
80s,
not sure.
70s, I
The
think.
reason I ask is I know things like ADA compliance and funds and grants funds for ADA compliance in historic buildings can often be available. And I was wondering if we'd pursued that option at all.
The library, the elevator's not in,
Yeah, the,
That part.
what is not in it is the elevator and the stairs.
yeah.
You need to park it from your meter to your house is what we're talking about.
Yeah, but that was an issue, and was this 2 years ago when there was a leak in the Carnegie Library part, and they had to go and fix the leak, but then it meant all this work on the bricks and the mortar and everything, and that had to be done in a certain way. The man that did the work was a historic specialist on how to do that, and so there are things that are affected by that part being a historic building, but as the mayor said, the stairs and the elevator are not. Obviously, there wasn't an elevator at that time, so that's in the added part.
But good idea.
Thanks.
No ADA back then either.
Nope.
No.
It wasn't.
There were.
Okay, so you'll get with Eric and
Yeah.
let's start that process. If it's a 6-month process, it's,
I'll reach out with him today.
yeah.
This is a
Find out what we
new
need to do.
enough one that
Okay.
it wasn't.
Any other questions, council?
Mayor, before we move on, can I throw an idea out that I think over time, I think we should do? Is that we should actually take some money and allocate it to Fund 78 for emergencies and things like that, to where we actually have a balance set aside, and start actually making it part of our process. And I'd just like to throw that idea out if I can.
I think we all have agreed with that.
Yeah.
Brent?
Did you have an idea ideally what that balance should be?
Well, I think it should almost be like $1 million contribution per year. But I think we ought to step up to that, because when we start, again, as we start talking about the building, the maintenance and things like that, we can, instead of doing a huge tax ask and a low, we can start to kind of stabilize that, and I think it makes it more predictable. And I think it just helps the city.
That's actually where we were before.
we used to do that?
That's, yeah, we started $1 million, that's what we used to do, so. Yeah.
What did you spend of that? Do you know when that was? Did the whole $1 million get spent, or was there, do you remember if there was pretty good carryover every year? So it's,
There was pretty good, there was some carryover. That's why you've got $800,000 here that is unobligated, that has not been obligated. But we used it on some things in the remodelings in City Hall. The police department got a number of things. Fire, I think radios and stuff. We contributed stuff with fire and police radios and some cameras. I think the body cams were a part of that. And so it was things that came up that we said, yeah, it's probably important to do and have. I know that City Hall's roof was replaced with that. So there were a number of things. It just, things that you don't anticipate.
I just think it's good business.
Just
I mean,
there,
it's
so.
good business to put money away so we don't have those battles when we have those types of problems. And it doesn't become another tax ask.
And they aren't necessarily problems either. They can be unanticipated
Right, right,
opportunities.
right.
Or, grant opportunities, things we need, here's an opportunity to get a deal on something with a little match money.
Exactly.
And it isn't budgeted. We don't have to wait for budget amendments to go through to get spending authority. We've got the money set aside. We don't have to wait for the next fiscal year to go through. And it gives us some reserves that we can use without going to the taxpayers again.
If I can, to add on that too, is I think when you're fighting inflation, and all of these different things, lead times, everything like that, I don't think, we want to have a huge savings account, but I think we need to have money set aside that if there's an opportunity, whether it's a grant, whether it's a fire truck, whether it's whatever, that we've been waiting for this lead time, and all of a sudden they say, hey, look, we've got an opportunity because somebody fell out of the bid process.
That $1.8 million for that fire truck came out of this too. Josh and then Scott and Linda and Brent.
Will there be an amount in this fiscal year, not $1 million per se, but an amount that we are planning on putting during the tax solution that we can evaluate?
I would like to do that. I haven't done it yet, but I think I need to put some amount, whether it's $250,000, just to start working that philosophy in.
Yes, there will be.
Okay.
Okay, so my question is personnel savings, right? Historically, I know we end up with personnel savings sometimes. Department heads come for and ask to use some of that money, right, for those kind of projects. I have this money, and would it not be better if we had personnel? Could we take personnel savings at the end of the year and put it into this fund?
I think in future years we might be able to, but this year, I believe all of those savings, and speaking of fiscal year '23, any savings, correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor, that we're gonna need to commit that to the unfunded pension because so many people just haven't
Right.
planned.
All right.
And so that,
Anyway,
In the past, we've used a lot of that personnel savings to get people up to the reserve amount. And so we've got people at the reserve amount, and then we have put some of that personnel savings into this in the past. We've done some of that. But this year, years ago, this happened again years ago, 17, 18 maybe, we started, instead of asking, the personnel asked for all the retirements that were being done, we stopped asking every year, and we put it in a fund. Well, a few years ago, that fund stopped being funded, and we started draining that. And so the personnel savings today, or this year, we've got to build that fund back up so that we're not back to where we were. We were moved backwards.
Right.
And it's time for us to move forward again.
Just wanted to know if that was something we could do, that legally,
Yeah.
as
it
you
is.
move
Because
money
it's
and
general fund,
savings.
it's general fund money.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Who else? We had Linda.
I'm gonna actually let Brent go in front of me because I'm gonna change the subject a little bit, so.
Brent.
Yeah, I'm just curious, when did we stop contributing that $1 million a year?
You know, Mayor probably knows better than I do, but it's a couple of years.
Couple of years ago, we had the council, 3 years ago, council said cut $1 million to the CFO, and there was not a vote from the council to do that. He just arbitrarily did that. And so from that point forward, we haven't been able to put it in there.
We're like 3 years behind perhaps on what
Absolutely.
we used to do.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right, thank you.
So I'm gonna switch gears a little bit, and I don't know if this is really the place to bring this up, but I don't know where to bring it up, so I'm gonna do it here. I have another little proposal. So we heard from College Neighborhood the other day asking for some money to support their activities, and then at lunch, we had a conversation just about neighborhoods and this idea of sort of encouraging neighborhood associations and activities. And we live in such a divided atmosphere in our country at this time. And I think at the local level, if we can really support neighbors working together and support the idea of community and people meeting each other, and that we as a council really support that idea. And it goes along with our welcoming city resolution, some of the other things that we've tried to promote in this community. And so I was asking the mayor and somebody else in our community that has been working with different groups in order to increase inclusion and diversity and all of those things. And so an idea is to, and we commented on the fact that we only heard from one neighborhood. And I would then propose changing them and bringing, instead of just having that one proposal and we consider that we incorporate that into this idea. But we have 6 neighborhoods in our community that have, I mean, we have a lot more than that, but we have 6 right now that have some, that have organized, that have some kind of association and do some kind of activities together as a neighborhood. So I would like to propose that we start with those 6, and that includes the College Neighborhood. So this would replace their ask from the other day, that we budget $5,000 for each of those 6 neighborhoods. And we can have the mayor and Jean maybe sort of figure out where exactly that money would be best placed. But that would bring us to a total of $30,000 to encourage neighborhood associations and activities and building community and people sort of working together. And I think if we sort of build that up at the grassroots level and we support that, that it could really do good things for our community. And then other neighborhoods, hopefully, this would encourage other neighborhoods that don't have associations or aren't organized. They would see that this was happening and they would start that in their neighborhoods. And also the ones that are less active, like College Neighborhood we talked about is one of the most organized and active. They can sort of be the model, and other neighborhoods can sort of model their organization after the College Neighborhood, and those that are less active can become more active, and that it incentivizes all of our neighborhoods to really get involved and start working together. It's a way for people to talk to each other that wouldn't normally do so, and to get out and meet. And I think it's a small amount of money for a very big impact on our community, and I'd like us to think about
Consider
that.
Rick, you had a...
Well, I just, in speaking to that issue, I just remember back when the council had a slush fund. And everybody in town, when word got out that the council had set aside some money that was discretionary use during the year, the council was inundated with people at every meeting coming in and requesting and asking and wanting, and it became a real problem to choose and pick as to who got what and how much. And I don't think it's a good idea to get back in that mode again. I think this was right before you came into office, Mr.
They
Mayor.
had, we had what they called the Council Select Fund.
Yeah.
And they would limit that number to, I forget the dollar amount they limited it to, but I want to say there was, we did that for the first couple of years that I was in office, and then the council said, stop coming to us
Can I
and
just comment
asking
on that?
on those. And so that was, yeah, I think they were limiting it to like $300 to $500. And so,
But I do think we're way off topic here.
I
yeah.
just wanted to comment on that idea. I'm proposing something very specific. This is neighborhood associations, so not anybody
Not my
coming in
neighborhood.
with any, well, if you're not one of
Why
those.
do I want to spend my neighborhood's money for the benefit of other neighborhoods when I can't benefit from it? That's where I think the problem comes in.
So this would be, why don't we, I think you're probably right, Rick. We might be off a little bit here, and Jared started to twitch a little bit over there. And so why don't we, this could be a discussion in the tax solution in a couple of weeks is probably where it is. But I think it's an idea that I like the idea, the application of the idea. It may work and may not personally.
Needs to
But
be figured out.
let's have we can have this discussion then, but the council knows what Linda's thinking, it sounds like, so. Any other questions, any other comments? Not necessarily on this.
I just had a comment on that. I used to work for NeighborWorks Association, so that might be a better avenue for us to partner with them, making a donation to the NeighborWorks. They work with the older neighborhoods in Pocatello, and they could distribute those funds. Just an
Okay.
idea.
All right, so we can have that discussion in, on the 28th or 9th or whatever that is, so that's a good thing. Any other questions for Gene? All right, then, perfect, okay. Thank you then very much. Thank you to the staff and everybody that presented today. Thank you, council.
I think there's another agenda item.
Yeah.
There is?
Gene,
It's Gene again.
I thought Gene, serious, Gene? You put you on here twice?
Man,
Well, I can always have.
Oh, my gosh, okay,
he
here we
said that
go.
we were done enough times that Mayor believed him.
Like we're done. I didn't realize he was interested in the camera that much. So we'll go ahead and move to agenda item number 10.
I'll go fast.
Gene Hill, CFO, will give a presentation.
Thank you, sir.
1201, much.
Just some ideas of what we've done. I think it's really important, this audit and CAFA for 21 are completed. And the staff worked so hard to bring us from 2 years behind. We're still behind, but it was so much work, and I don't need to get into that, but that's just, my hat's off to Bonnie and the staff for getting that done. And again, getting us done, caught up. For this year, I think our biggest thing, as you know, is going to be this integration of Central Square, and then just getting caught up. Basically, as you know, we're funded through the interfund. This year, the ask is about a 16% more total on the expenses, but I'll jump right down to that. Personnel is the big one. Everything else is pretty well the 3%. Interrupt me too. I'm trying to go fast, so just interrupt me if you've got any questions. The two big asks I've got, again, is the finance systems person, so that we can make sure that the system gets done right, and we don't have the problems that we've had in the past on the integration. And the second is really getting a high-quality admin person, because we spend so much time, the staff, putting together what should be an admin person doing that. And then again, interfund the upgrade for the system, because we've already paid the $200,000, which was the 23 budget. Our ask is going to be for 24 would be the 318. Questions?
Questions? I apologize, Gene. I thought we'd already
It's
done
okay.
this. I thought this happened on Monday.
Oh,
Any other questions, council?
I do.
Okay, Brent?
So on the software, that's the Central Square upgrade, right?
Yes.
So we've already made a down payment on that of a couple $100,000, right? That came out of general fund.
Yes.
So we've got another 318 here proposed.
Yes,
And
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 that-
where do you anticipate that's
So
gonna come from?
That 318 would come from the enterprise side. If you look at using dollars coming in, everybody uses this system, right? I
Right.
mean, it's kind of the, excuse the expression, the backbone or the guts of the software for the entire system or city. And so the government side paid the first 200,000, right? For
Tax-funded side.
Right.
He likes government, but it's tax-funded. Go ahead.
Thanks for the clarification. Okay, the tax-funded side. And so the enterprise side will pay for the 24, and then in 25, there'll be another, which would be paid by the tax side for a total amount of 833,000. That's your question.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions for Gene?
Council, Mayor, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for giving us Friday off.
Thank you. Thank you, Gene. Thank you again, staff, everybody that was here and presented. The council's got a lot of work ahead of them, and so I'm looking forward to those meetings. With that, we are adjourned.